So if everyone could take a seat, we'll get started. Tonight, we are welcoming Vivian Chang. She's Executive Director of Asian Americans United. They're offering new walking tours as part of the No Arena movement, emphasizing the priceless value of protecting Chinatown. Vivian will discuss the threat of displacement of the Chinatown community that will result from the construction of the arena, as well as examples from Chinatown's history of resistance that inform the walking tour and the campaign to oppose the proposed arena. Chinatown is the last remaining community of color in Center City, yet its existence has repeatedly been threatened over the last 6 decades. Vivian previously worked in labor organizing and voter outreach, organizing multiracial communities in multiple states. She holds an MPA from Princeton University, a BS in biological physics, and a BA in Hispanic Studies from Carnegie Mellon University. So let's give a nice warm welcome to Vivian Chang. And if you could, we're just going to hold all questions or comments until the end. So we'll let her get through her presentation and then we'll take all the questions at the end, because we need to have the microphone for your questions so that we can get it recorded on Zoom.
Thank you for the great introduction. I always forget. I'm like, oh, you don't need to read the whole bio. But yeah, thank you for having me. I think just really excited to present to you all. There was a member, Charlotte. Yeah, oh my God, yes. So who came, and that was, I think, one of our very first tours back in March. So we were trying it out. Hopefully it felt good on the first one, but you know, I feel like the energy you brought, you were like, there's other people who need to see this. So when the email came across, I was like, yes, let's do it. And I think it's exciting because I think, yeah, just like we shared in the summary, this was not necessarily a project we embarked on knowing that there's a whole community of tour guides and there's this. It was really knowing that a lot of folks don't know much about Chinatown, right? I think a lot of people that we've talked to, either you come to Chinatown, you eat there and you love it and you know it, or you've never been there. Like, it's kind of wild. I met even like TV producers who had just never come to Chinatown and they've lived here their whole lives. So like knowing that and knowing the struggle that we're fighting, we realized, okay, how do we invite people in? What's like a kind of easy, comfortable way that someone's going to say, yes, I'll come into Chinatown. It's a walking tour. So that way, you know, folks don't have to know anything beforehand. It's something like an accessible format. So that's how we came up with this. And we've been doing it monthly since then. And it's just been really great. I think like so many times folks come and they say either like, I've been wanting to get involved and I'm glad you did it. Or they just said, I don't know anything about Chinatown. And then after an hour, I know a lot. I know everything. I take it back, right? So that's what we love to hear. So I just really appreciate this opportunity. So today's presentation will be about a lot of Chinatown's history. I heard a request, you know, going into the semi-sesquicentennial, I forget the name of the thing, but 2026, right, for Philadelphia, the 250-year anniversary. Like, obviously, a lot of folks are looking to our city, and they're wanting to hopefully learn about our history, right? Not just like what you can see visually. So I really, you know, wanted to share that with you all as tour guides, because I think I heard some folks do tours in Chinatown. Other folks, maybe you're in Center City or in another place, but you would want to reference what's happening or like what has happened in Philly Chinatown. So that's kind of with this in mind. But also, if you're asking for good food recommendations, we could talk about that at the end. So Philadelphia Chinatown, 150 years. I think something I always start with when we share about this is that for us, resistance is a tradition. It's multi-generational organizing. So I know these photos are a little bit low resolution, but that one on the left is from the 2000 stadium fight. So before the stadium district in South Philly, the Phillies were trying to put what's now Citizens Bank Park in Callow Hill neighborhood in Chinatown North, which imagine that, like next to the school district and you have a giant stadium. So that was one of the more recent times that Chinatown had to push back. That's the origin of these shirts. So if you look underneath, it says stadium, casino, arena. But yeah, there's folks. So Chiang Kai-shek, he actually came to our march last summer. So he was 73 in 2000, you know, do the math. He's like over 90 now and still fighting for this. And then on the right, that was the 2008 casino fight. 2 different times, developers tried to put a casino in Chinatown. And so these 2 youths, children, Kaya and Taryn, they're still part of today's fight. They're part of a college student group against the arena and a new youth center that we've just developed in North Chinatown. So, what is the origins of Philly Chinatown? I think, some of it we can see from these headlines from the Inquirer back then. And this map that actually the Inquirer has this really great timeline that you can walk through. But yeah, a lot of folks cite our Chinatown as starting in 1870 or 1871. That's basically the founding of the first business, which was a laundry. And also, which I even didn't know till I started giving these tours and learning from folks like WA, but our Philly Chinatown was founded by folks from California. So I think that makes sense for a lot of East Coast Chinatowns. They actually weren't like immigrants who came to the East Coast first, right? A lot of people came through the West Coast. It's closer to Asia. And our folks came from LA actually because there were race riots in LA. So there were Chinese Americans who were being lynched and they just were like, this is not safe anymore. So they fled to the East Coast. And I think knowing that history is very important because I feel like a lot of the ways we're taught about Chinatowns, ethnic enclaves is like neutral. Oh, everyone chose to live together. But actually, like from the very beginning, Philadelphia Chinatown, it was about like racial exclusion and a lot of the things that are still kind of, showing up here these days. So I think that's something we definitely share because, when it's like, oh, why doesn't Chinatown want an arena? It's neutral or like it's beneficial. Well, this is a community that literally has fought to survive ever since the beginning. So it's not really neutral in that way. But yeah, so 1870s, 1930s, a lot of kind of beginnings of Philly Chinatown. It was like where it is now in Center City, right? Very thriving, very like family friendly, but at the time, not at all. Like that's where folks were forced into because of, exclusionary like land owning restrictions, business restrictions. Like a lot of Chinese folks weren't allowed to be in a lot of sectors of business. Because again, the Chinese Exclusion Act was in force in the United States. There were a lot of different ways that folks weren't allowed to be citizens. They weren't allowed to like own property the same way. So what could they do? They could own laundries. They could do a lot of manual labor. And actually Chinatown was a lot of like bachelors. There's a lot of men from Chinatown or from China because like women weren't allowed to immigrate here. So there's kind of like this period, like several decades where it's kind of not really growing, but just developing, kind of staying alive. And then, the 40s, 50s, 60s, the US decides to embark on urban renewal. We'll call it urban removal here. Yeah. But, there was the gallery when that came in, the Broadbridge Spur. And I think it's interesting to think about those things because some of it is like, well, this was important for the development of Center City. It's like, yes. And we still lost communities in this way. So I think that's something we're always grappling with is like, there's things that can be helpful, that can be part of what progress is, but how do we protect like the communities that are there? Even like the gallery coming in, before it was a fashion district, there was a series of Black neighborhoods that were like removed for the creation of that. So it's like thinking about, okay, there's a lot of ways that different communities have had to be displaced. So yeah, these are some of the first ones. And then I think my next slide is a video. Let me see. Okay, yes. And then I'll kind of jump back in, but we're gonna watch WA talk. So folks don't know, WA is a huge anchor leader in Save Chinatown. She was a founding member of Asian Americans United, so I owe a lot to her. But yeah, if you're ever at a rally or if you ever see, like feisty lady, that's probably Debbie. So this is a short 5-minute history of different projects affecting Chinatown.
Chinese came to the East Coast to escape incredible violence that was happening to them on the West Coast. And this is just one example in LA. One day, October 24th, 1871, 18 Chinese were killed in that one day. 15 of them were lynched. Altogether, they killed 10% of the Chinese population of LA that day. And therefore, it's no wonder that Philly's Chinatown started the same year that something like this happened. But this was not the only incident. This was happening all over the American West and in Canada. Chinatown started 150 years ago. Rough areas, 8th to 11th, and eventually a little bit past 11th. Vine, a little bit past Vine, to a little bit past Race going toward Arch. Okay, that was the boundaries in the beginning. The first incursion was when they built the Broad Street line spur, the Broad Ridge spur. You see the spur took all the land on a diagonal between 8th and 9th Street. This was the first taking of land in Chinatown. Then we go to the 70s, and that's when they decided to do this thing called urban renewal. Chinatown was considered blighted. They decided to build the expressway in a way that would have wiped out Chinatown. When they made that design, the design also took the Holy Redeemer Church and School. And that's when the community went, oh, hell no. Like, this is the only place where Chinese feel safe. You are not taking this building. But you see that our young people sitting up here on the rubble, trying to block the bulldozers from advancing. They moved the exit ramps over in order to save Holy Redeemer Church. But we still lost. All the housing in that swath was lost. This is a time lapse that gives you a sense of what the Vine Street Expressway did to us. This here, this little street here, that's Vine Street, which is now that 6-lane highway. Then we got the 80s. We have the convention center. 200 people lost their homes as a result of the convention center. And then they also built the commuter rail tunnel, which was a block that ran underneath the same block that the Broadridge Spur was on. And so they raised all the housing. This is the last house that was standing between 8th and 9th Street. They lasted as long as they could, but the city took everything by eminent domain. But the graffiti on the side says, our forefathers built the railroad. We didn't think it would come this far. So in the 1990s, they also proposed a federal prison. I'm telling you, Chinatown has had everything and the kitchen sink thrown into it. So the federal prison was going to go the north side of Vine Street, right next to Holy Redeemer. We fought that. We won. We kept them from coming in. And on that land now stands Hinghua Yun and Tsinghua Yun, which are affordable housing complexes built for people in the community. And that takes us to 2000. This is like the fight that many people remember, kind of a legendary fight against the Phillies wanting to put a baseball stadium here. Our elders are on the front lines, our children are on the front lines. To give you a sense of this multi-generational organizing, I just pulled a few of my family pictures. This over here, Chen Kai-jong, he's 73 at the time. And when we had our protest on June 10th, he insisted on speaking. He's 96. She goes, I have to speak. The young people need to see that we are still fighting for them. And over here is the casino fight, because we also had to fight off a casino in 2008. So this gives you a sense of that red line being sort of Chinatown, the Vine Street Expressway, the commuter rail tunnel, convention center. You see that big, huge mass that took all that housing. Those were the things that got built. And then we have the proposed things, the federal prison. That gray is where the stadium would have been. Down here was the proposed Foxwood Casino. And then right next to it, that blue, that's the basketball arena that's being proposed right now. So Chinatown has this incredible history of trying to fight off development projects all designed to kill the community.
I think there's a statistic. There used to be like 130 Chinatowns, and now there's less than 3 dozen in the whole U.S. So Washington D.C. I'm sure folks might have heard about the comparison there, but the Capital One Arena, where the oh my gosh, yeah, I was like the basketball and hockey team, the Caps and the Wizards, yes. So they play, and that was that project did go through in like 97. So when it was MCI. That really took out a lot of the Chinatown, and what remains is what people call China Block. So just a block of, stores. There's a Starbucks with Chinese on it, but it's not the same way that our Chinatown has grocery stores and like a church and everything like that. So that second one is literally DC Chinatown, Chipotle in Chinese. There's also like Pittsburgh, right, in our very own state. I think that was also impacted by PNC Park, because I think it was like downtown Pittsburgh. So a lot of like, not ironically, but like very interestingly, a lot of Chinatowns have faced like being shut down due to sports developments. Because I think when I started this, I assumed, oh, maybe it's just natural or things just change or gentrification. But a lot of it is very much the same history of like, there's an arena, there's a stadium. St. Louis, same thing. There was a stadium that came in and then boom, one mega development. Like a lot of communities are on the edge. So yeah, it's pretty tough. And I think, and sometimes folks ask like, well, how does Chinatown feel about it? We did a survey. So, 93% of business owners, 94% of residents like oppose the arena. And especially now, 2 years later, like folks are really concerned. A lot of folks now, they just think, is it over? Like, have we lost already? Because what they're doing is trying to survive day to day. And they feel like, well, I see all this advertising for the arena and like, I see Sixer signs everywhere. Like, is our Chinatown going to survive? So there is this, it's very, very like kind of demotivating, this sense of like, can our Chinatown survive? Even though if you step back, you think, well, it's been through 150 years. But, in that 150 years, Chinatown has shrunk through the Vine Street, through the convention center, different spaces. And also last year, our Chinatown was named one of the 11 most historic endangered places. So I think this is National Trust for Historic Preservation. So every year they kind of focus on different places in the US that are definitely at risk. So Philly Chinatown, up there. This is like really helpful when you're on our tour, but a lot of times, folks think, oh, the arena is not in Chinatown, right? And the developers have said, oh, it's a 5-minute walk. Actually, it's 6 inches away. So literally, this is our handmade drawing. But the back wall of the arena would abut basically a convenience store in Chinatown. It's like convenience and like hardware kind of all mixed in one. It's called a Huge Family. But it's like, I'm like, that's not a 5-minute walk. That's right there. And if you imagine too, right, like that's the Greyhound terminal, and then the fashion district is right next to it. So like the estimates we've been given is 6 years of construction, 2 years of demolition, 4 years of building up. And I don't know, if I were that business owner, I would be so worried because every day that's like, construction coming through, and like, this is not like a giant store. So I think I've really appreciated like having the tour and having folks come and see it in person and say, whoa, this is much closer than I thought. Okay, what I heard on the news was, I thought it was very far away, but it's like, it's that close. So I know that there's kind of this narrative of like, why is, it's not in Chinatown. Why would Chinatown like have control over it? But for us, it's like, look, this is literally like where our folks live. And this is like right next to us. I mean, like, would I want an arena right next to my house? Right. And would I not have a say in like what happens in my neighborhood? And then the next few images, just what is Chinatown, right? I think there's kind of a sense of Chinatown as like restaurants, bubble tea. Yes, it is that, but it's also like the people here. And I think that's something we really emphasize with our tours and with a storytelling project that we launched. So Chinatown is elders, it's families, it's kids who do like after school programs. This Saturday, there's actually like a national volleyball tournament of all the kids. And they're going to like go play near Franklin Park. So I'm like, oh, that's something that I don't think, if you're not involved in that, you might not realize, oh, this also still happens in our Chinatown. Something that's also like kind of the ethos of our Chinatown we think about is like fighting for what we don't want, but also building what we do want. So, on the left is an image from Lunar New Year. On the right is from our Mid-Autumn Festival that AAU we've been putting on for 30 years. And so like a lot of that was born out of folks feeling homesick, right? Folks feeling like, if they immigrated from another country, but they can't go back home, how do they still celebrate and feel connected to that? So there's a lot of ways that Chinatown serves that cultural heritage, that like familial connection that you just can't get, if you just think about it as restaurants. Because it's like, okay, maybe I can eat the same food, but like, will I find these same people who are going to build this together and who know me? And like, literally like a lot of folks in our movement, they walk down the street and someone's like, hey, it's my babysitter from when I was a kid. That's my second grade teacher. Like our Chinatown is still one where those kinds of connections happen. A couple other sites that I love to name that we do go through some of these on our tour, but they're not like Chinatown traditionally. So a lot of these are like north of the Vine Street Expressway. But Folk Arts Cultural Treasures Charter School, AAU founded this school in 2005 and is located where the Philly Stadium would have been, or the parking lot would have been. But now it's a kindergarten through K-8 school that serves 500 students. So I think, after winning the fight against the stadium, folks were thinking, okay, what can we do to put our mark on this community, right? Because like, why does this area get targeted for development? It's because like it's seen as like nothing happening here, because that area is like very industrial, a lot of warehouses. So folks embarked on like building a school. So like literally this was a warehouse converted into a school, and now it's like been serving community for 20 years. So really thinking about, okay, we didn't want the stadium, but we did want a school. The Chinese Christian Church Annex, this is, I think, 12th and Vine or 11th and Vine. So Chinese Christian Church and Center, there's one on Spring Street in Chinatown, and then they grew and they have like a huge congregation. So they've added an annex that's on the other side of the Vine Street. But again, I think sometimes folks draw the borders of Chinatown as stopping at the expressway. And I'm like, well, literally, the worshipers, they're on both sides of it, right? So we can't just like artificially cut it off. And then these are some high school students from the Suns, which is a lion dance team and basketball and volleyball. I don't know how they do it all. But these kids like year round are getting a lot of like physical activity, connection, a lot of working with elders in the community who like, did this when they were young. So there's like all these cool photos of like 1970s Chinatown basketball with like the tiny shorts they wore back then. And it's like carrying on that history from their parents and their grandparents. And then our Chinatown project. So actually the impetus for starting our tours. So we have these posters that are up in Chinatown. I hope folks may have seen that. I heard some folks. Okay, yeah. So they're basically on, I think, 6 different sites around Chinatown. On our website has like the whole kind of map of where they are. But we profiled 18 different people of Chinatown. And so I think it's like really thinking about, okay, what's the type of person that you wouldn't know if you just went there like as a visitor, as a tourist. So like on the top left, Mary Yi, she's actually in that photo of the rubble that was in Debbie's video. So she was like 24, I think, when the Vine Street was coming through. Yeah. And now she's still part of this fight. She helped found AAU, just really, really great person. And in the middle is Uncle Sam, who runs Little Saigon Cafe, which is on 10th Street, closer to the expressway. And he was actually like behind a lot of the No Stadium in Chinatown organizing. So back then he was head of the Benevolent Association, and he came up with this idea for a one-day restaurant strike. So he's very like, yeah, I mean, you can tell, right? His whole store is decked out in No Arena stuff. So he really is like just such a crucial member for our community. And then top right, Elizabeth Jones, she works at the Welcoming Center. So they work with immigrants all over the city. But she personally grew up in Hong Kong, and her story talks about feeling like Chinatown is one of the few places that reminds her of home. So yeah, we kind of were thinking about like, okay, there's all these people that we know and love, and that makes Chinatown even more of a connection for us. But how do you give that experience to someone else who like doesn't necessarily live in this neighborhood or can't like meet these people one-on-one? So that's where these posters came about. And we also have, I don't think I had it on here, but on our website, and there's a QR code when you're there in person, you can scan and read the transcripts from all their interviews. So it was actually like interviews between our high school students and these folks. So they're really cute because you kind of see how a high schooler talks to someone. But yeah, we like, this is 3 out of the series. We also feature like the lunch ladies who work at the folk arts school, and King Lim, who runs like an herbal store. So it's like all these kind of commerce and just working life that you wouldn't necessarily see unless you're actually like part of that community. So I think it's really our way of trying to say like, let's build this connection, right? Let's understand each other. And then these are some photos of it in real life. So definitely like trying to place them in places where people would, accidentally happen upon them. So yeah, I love like walking around Chinatown and seeing like people taking pictures, and I'm like, this is cute. Yeah, and then also placing them like on our tour, we do a certain route because then we can talk about the history through them. So on the right-hand side, this photo faces the convention center. So then we talk about like, okay, what could this have been? What was this, right? What is it now? And then just some more pictures of Chinatown just to share. So again, these are Lunar New Year, mid-autumn, things like that. I think I don't know. That's some of my favorite things. Like I haven't always lived in Philly. And so when I lived elsewhere, I would come here for the festivals because we just had nothing like it. We didn't have a Chinatown anymore. So I think that's something I always love to share. We talk about our tours because I think even on a day-to-day, Chinatown is very busy and thriving, but there's also these like huge, like just festival days that are like so fun. And to me is like just part of what makes our city special, you know? Yeah. And then this is just one of the images that was from Debbie's video, but kind of re-upping, like there's a Chinatown that we have, but also like Chinatown has faced so much, right? So, you know, the Save Chinatown movement actually started 60 years ago, right? In this little newsletter image that we have here. And I think like that work is something I would say I personally have learned a lot from, but it also is like honestly, folks were like, again, not again. So I think there's so much power for like allyship and solidarity in this room and like outside this room too, because like folks they get tired, right? And we're trying to like keep surviving. And it's like we will keep doing it, but how do we, you know, feel like all of Philadelphia is like, you know, kind of taking a stand against it? Because honestly, I'm like, this is what makes Philly Philly. Like it's not, you know, high rises, money and things. It's like it's the working class community. It's like the folks who've always been here. Some other images just to kind of put them here so you can kind of look at them a little bit longer. So these are all from the video. But that middle one is the map of Chinatown. This top left is the resistance against the Vine Street Expressway. And then the right, I just love it. I just think it's very funny. And it's funny. Actually, when Jim Kenney was a council member, he was actually like very supportive of Chinatown, the stadium. He just, you know, he has this look, but yeah. But yeah, you know, this is kind of like different folks who've been involved in this fight and who are still part of like protecting what this community looks like because their children go to school here or their kids are raising their next family here. So I think like there's a lot of that generational work that's happening. And then just some cute pictures. So these are all within the last year, different ways that we've been organizing against the arena. So, you know, showing up to big festivals, making sure people know like this fight is still on, don't give up. And then on the bottom, you know, those are pictures from the big march that we had last summer. We have another one coming up September 7th, which is a Saturday. And then the bottom right, like a press conference, right? Informing people about different ways that we're being misled or kind of deceived around the arena and the supposed benefits. And then last thing, just if in case this is interesting to all our coalition nerds, but Asian Americans United, we do not do this alone, not at all. So I always want to give credit, shout out all the folks that are organized in this fight. So folks might have seen like No Arena Washington Square West, you know, and that's a neighborhood that's organized on their own because they recognize like, okay, Chinatown's here, the arena's here, we're right here. We're right next to that community. So what will traffic look like for us? What will an extra 18,000 people look like for our little neighborhood? There's also folks like Power Interfaith who recognize like, you know, one of their big issues is funding for public education. And if we're going to pay like, you know, hundreds of millions in taxes to this arena, well, what does that mean for public schools? So yeah, I think there's just so many ways that like we're really appreciative of like folks recognizing like this is a shared issue, this is a shared fight. And yeah, I don't know, it's kind of fun. I feel like everyone I meet when I wear this shirt, they're like, yeah, I hate that arena, or like the Sixers should win a championship before they get an arena. I'm like, maybe. Yeah. But yeah, I think we can end here and take questions. Yeah, go ahead. Oh, sorry. Oh, right, microphone. Yes. Oh, thank you.
Thank you. That was a wonderful presentation. So what is the status of the
Yes.
covering over the Vine Street Expressway?
Oh, good
And
question.
how do you envision that kind of bolstering Chinatown and renewing that connection that's been severed?
Yeah, great question. And we also do this a little on our tour. So the covering is there's the kind of colloquial name, the Chinatown Stitch. So I still don't really understand how it works, but like the plan is, and there's federal funds to do this. The plan is to cover up the Vine Street Expressway, I think for like 2 or 3 blocks between like 12th and 10th. And so the idea, at least the renderings I've seen, it becomes like a park. So I think Vine Street, like the street level is still there, but there's going to be just like this giant park in the middle. So the idea is to stitch Chinatown back together. Because if you ever cross a Vine Street, you're like running. You're like, oh my God. And it's not safe. There's a lot of kids who walk in the neighborhood. Yeah. So I've heard that it's going to take 10 years. So I think folks are excited, but also wondering like, okay, how do we keep Chinatown alive? So there is something that's stitched back together. And I will say too, I think I've heard developers play off of it where they said, well, Chinatown's getting this park thing, so they should give up the arena fight. I'm like, that's not the same at all. Like a park is not equal to displacing all of our folks. Yeah. So great question. Yeah.
2 questions.
Yeah.
One, what happened to the Chinese fortune cookie factory?
Ooh. Great
You
question.
remember that on
I
9th
remember
Street?
it, but I wonder too. Oh, you should.
Go ahead.
Lease was never renewed.
So the Chinese fortune cookie factory that was on 9th, their lease was never renewed because that space was turned into residential. If you go by there, there's condos now. Yeah.
And my second one is very important. Are they registered to vote? Because that's where
Yeah.
the power is at. The power to
Yeah.
stop and get what you want is through voting and getting a person in the city council to represent your area. And if you don't have no voice except for the protesters, but the power is in the pen.
Yeah.
So are they registered to vote
Yes,
in
that's.
Chinatown?
I was like, maybe you know what we do. Actually, we have a whole program at AAU called Chinatown Vote. So we're out there every like Friday and Saturday getting folks registered. Also, we're a nonpartisan organization, so I will not comment on who's elected. But I mean, I agree with you. I think there's a lot of ways that we try to help, make sure folks are calling city council, right? Talking to your council members and saying like, I don't want this arena, right? Because it's not just enough to like vote someone in, but also to hold them accountable and be like, hey, aren't you supposed to represent like all of our neighborhoods? Like, we don't want this. Councilman Skula, first district. Yeah. 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 No, he's great. Yeah. He shows up to our stuff. Yeah.
I've got 2 questions.
Yeah.
And one is a follow-up to what you just said. For all of the challenges that have been presented to Chinatown over the course of the years, I understand that in city council, there's kind of a principle that the council person whose district that is has the final say on how things are going. Not necessarily pointing to Scalia, but to others over the course of time. How supportive has your particular council person been to these issues? And then second question is there still people coming from China establishing residency in Chinatown?
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah, I'll do the simpler one first. So yes, we actually just finished up our high school programs. So AAU runs 2 high school programs in the summer. One of them is like Mandarin only, so really like Chinese language. And I think 3 or 4 of our students like immigrated to Philly like from China in the last 6 months, which is wild to me because I'm like, you're literally in high school and you're learning a whole new system. Like, I don't understand, right? And 2 of those students live in Chinatown. So I think definitely there's still constantly folks who are like finding Chinatown as like the place that they can immigrate to and like get supports. And I think like, yeah, I feel very fortunate. Like, I don't know that they found their way to us because like, I think they would struggle otherwise, right? They don't necessarily have the language skills. Our schools aren't equipped to like support them that level. So yeah, there's definitely like still folks every day who are immigrating into this Chinatown. And then, yeah, how supportive. So yeah, we love inviting Councilman Squilla to events and coming to talk to folks. So he does show up. He's great at showing up. I will say, I always tell my students, if you want him to come, he'll come. And then you have to present to a council member. Yeah. I think it's interesting that when it was first announced 2 years ago, the arena, he said, if Chinatown doesn't want it, then I'm against it. And then Chinatown was very strong and loud against it. And then he said, well, if other neighborhoods don't want it, then I'll think about it. So then Washington Square West came out against it. And then he said, well, there's other communities too. So that's kind of what's been happening. Yeah, so I think it's always super helpful for us when like more allies can say, I don't want it either. I don't want it for them. I don't want it in our area that's like right next to it, right? I think like I think for Councilman School, I can see like he doesn't want to be the villain in this. So he's like, well, you know, but it's like, okay, how do we show like, hey, this is a no-go for everybody. Yeah, because Chinatown made its intentions very clear. Our neighbors have started making their voices clear, but it's sort of, yeah, it's hard to kind of break through. Yeah.
Since everybody seems to get two questions, I'll give you two questions.
Great.
First question, how many people live in Chinatown? And how would you describe them demographically as far as singles, families, older people, young, whatever?
Yeah, this is a great question.
So go ahead, answer that question, but I'm going to reserve
Oh,
time
that
for
was
the
a question.
second question.
Oh yeah. Okay, great question. Yes. Now I feel bad because I should just look into the census and learn how to read those tables because I get this question a lot. So I think the estimates are around 3,000 to 3,500 people live in Chinatown. Of course, it sort of varies depending on how far north you set your boundaries, but most people say 3,000. And yeah, this part I don't know the household breakdown, but like there's definitely, let's say anecdotally or qualitatively, a lot of families that still live there. A lot of the businesses are still family owned. A lot of folks like live in Chinatown and they walk to McCall Elementary, which is the closest district school. Yeah. So there's still a lot of like families that live there, but I feel bad that I never know the percentages. And then nationality, yeah, a lot of folks from China. I think what's interesting that you see across different Chinatowns is that like in the 60s, 70s, 80s, like there were a lot of folks from like Canton, Guangzhou. So like Cantonese speaking immigrants. And our Chinatown was like that too. Or actually like even pre-1965, that's who made up Chinatown. And then more recently, like the last 20 years, Philly Chinatown has had more folks from Fuzhou, which like is more Mandarin speaking. So, you know, they're all like from China, but there's this kind of internal thing where folks are like, which language do I use? Or like, you know, where do people come from? Because like China's so vast that even like region to region, you feel like, well, we have a totally different culture. So yeah, but then also I would say there's a lot of younger folks moving in. There's like Chinatown is still more affordable than some other neighborhoods. So I definitely see folks who are like more my age and like not just necessarily Chinese or Asian. So it's definitely a mixture of things. And like, you know, Chinatown doesn't have a ton of public services, but there is a clinic, there is a church. So there are folks who are like Korean American and just like kind of other ethnicities that also come to Chinatown or live there. Yeah. And the question two.
Okay. What would you describe as the primary threat that the arena poses to the Chinatown community? Because I'm sure some people will argue it would be a net economic benefit. It would increase foot traffic. More people go to restaurants, et cetera, et cetera. So what is the primary threat of the arena to Chinatown?
Yeah, great question. And I'm always like, pick your issue. There's a threat. But I think primarily it's really about the displacement. Right. So if we go jump to the future, if it happens, like if you put an arena in that neighborhood, it's enormous, right? It's going to take over half of the fashion district and the Greyhound terminal. And so if right now when you walk, you can walk to Chinatown, right? Like, or if you want to pick up takeout, you could just easily drive in. But with an arena, well, not that easily. Yeah, exactly. Right. Yes, you can. Yes, you can drive in, but with an arena, you don't even want to try. You know, so it's like imagine if the stadium district was up in Chinatown and you're like, oh God, there's a game day. I'm not even going to do it. Right. But a lot of businesses in Chinatown, 30% of their revenue is takeout. And so it's like, okay, if I'm a business that's struggling like right on the margin and I lose 30%, like I just close. So I think there's that concern of like what happens when the arena's there and it's not going to be open most nights of the year. It's just going to be dark. So then you just have this, you know, like where the convention center is right now, that's like the most unsafe street because it's just dark. And then if you backtrack it, like the 6 years of construction, like Chinatown can't survive that. Like that means, again, 6 years where folks are like, I don't want to come here. I don't want to order food from there. It's too cumbersome. Then they're losing business. And I think, yeah, it just really changes the neighborhood, like economically and the character of it. So yeah, but I mean, there's also the air pollution from it. There's like a lot of cars in there, traffic, you know. I don't own a car, but I'm like, I see the pain of driving in Chinatown. So there's just a lot of ways that folks are really worried about what would happen.
It's a comment more than a question, but Sam Katz, who ran for mayor years ago, he has done a study and he said the only one of the inner city basketball arenas that have made it is Madison Square Garden.
Mm.
And you probably know that the Washington Wizards owner wants to leave and go to Maryland. So he's destroyed that area now and he wants to leave.
Yeah, exactly.
Opinion brought to you by Jim Murphy.
Thank you. Well, and it's funny is the DC, I was like, I can't believe I forgot, the Caps and the Wizards, I think folks heard, right? They tried to go to Virginia. They had to deal with the governor. And then state lawmakers, they were like, whoa, 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 you didn't even consult us. Like, you're trying to put this in our community. So it was very similar. I was like, we're going through the same thing. And yeah, it's like, they spent 30 years or 25 years at that site. And then they're like, boop, see ya. So it's kind of like, even if this arena is going to give benefits, we don't even know if they'll stay. And then what? We're left with another Disney hole,
Okay, I do have a question.
Yeah.
What is the Chamber of Commerce in Chinatown? How is that going to impact or in a way of fighting the arena as far as the business?
Yeah. So there's a couple, somehow Chinatown has dozens and dozens of associations. So for every one person, you get 2 associations. But there's a Chinatown Restaurant Association and then a couple other kind of similar named groups. So all of them are very much opposed. So when we are looking for a speaker at an event or just someone to give a quote, they usually are like, yeah, you can quote me. I don't like this. What's interesting, this is a little inside baseball, but there is a group called the Asian American Chamber of Commerce, and they've sometimes purported to speak for Chinatown, but most of their membership is not in Chinatown. I think Chinatown chooses to kind of stick with the it's Chinatown only, or they less English speaking groups, because that's kind of, they're not as fluent. So the Chamber of Commerce represents mostly suburban businesses, and just kind of it's kind of odd where you're okay, this group is very Chinatown and this group just doesn't have it. So I think there's sort of this kind of gap where folks think the Chamber of Commerce is representing the businesses, but it's really not. Yeah. Yeah.
Was I heard something on the news, I think the other day. I was only half listening. So, but is there something about an offer coming from Delaware?
Yeah, I only saw it on Twitter. It was both. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if it's real, but yeah, there's an article that said the governor of New Jersey, Phil Murphy, was offering something. And then the governor of Delaware tweeted hey, us too. But I don't know if anyone saw anything beyond that. Yeah. Oh, they were come to Wilmington and here's where you can put it. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
So a couple questions. One, do you have any partnership with the Chinese population that was displaced with the construction of the convention center that's in South Philadelphia near Little Saigon? 2, also, have you worked out with neighborhoods in South Philly? Because I live in South Philly and a lot of us are we already got the stadiums. We'll take another one.
Yeah,
we're fine with
exactly.
it. So maybe giving them a positive voice to counter.
Yeah.
And New Jersey is pushing. Delaware's a new one, and that one, some people feel like it's more stunt.
Yeah.
Whereas New Jersey has put forward a solid plan. Also, to maybe support statistics, there is anecdotal evidence from the restaurants about the negative impact when there's large conventions at the convention center that negatively affect business in Chinatown, that a stadium would even be more detrimental. If you look at Washington, D.C., their number one complaint is because of the traffic and then the gentrification. And basically their Chinatown rivaled ours and it was wiped out.
Yeah.
There's a total of 4 restaurants. And Madison Square Garden is in early talks of moving the stadium as well.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Yikes. What? Everyone can go to Jersey. Yeah. Yeah. They want to. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, not to, but I'll say this, one of the developers, I think it's Josh Harris, he owns a bunch of, NFC East teams. He's the Jersey Devils. So I'm kind of okay, are you loyal to Philly or are you just loyal to where you make money? Cause we're competing, Yeah. Yeah, to your question. Yeah, I think definitely there's folks in South Philly who've offered because they're yeah, this is part of our culture. We love walking to the stadiums. So yeah, I think definitely Yeah. And you know, Councilman Scola lives in like I think around like Front and like Snyder, kind of that neighborhood. So oh really? Okay. Yeah. So we've always encouraged, if you're his neighbor, talk to him. Tell him you want to keep them in South. Yeah, I think that definitely helps too, because yeah, it's not just about what happens in Chinatown, it's about what loses out in South Philly. Because I think I saw like there was a study that Comcast did, and it's like if you have two stadiums, they're just going to compete. And then what? And then you're like losing the business that's already there in South Philly.
Have you discussed anything with this, with the the city planner of Philadelphia? And also, actually, if you look at it geographically, the best place to put another stadium is still on Patterson Avenue.
Yep.
If you go down Patterson Avenue from Broad Street east, there's lots of lots sitting out there.
Yeah.
And did you offer them another area to put a stadium?
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
like talking to the city planner to say,
Yeah.
look, this is what will work. And it's all of the stadiums are right there. So why not just continue what works?
Yeah. Great question. So we have folks who try to meet with a planning office, or it's like PIDC. Yeah. Pretty regularly. Okay. Yeah. I think the planning commission and PIDC. Shows how little I'm know. But yeah, I know they try to meet with them on a monthly basis, and it's been tough. I think it's not like I understand, but I kind of get it, where we're perceived as like the community or the radicals. It's like, what do they know? Even though we have folks who have planning degrees, right? Folks who've done urban architecture. So like those conversations can be tough because we've said things like that. And we're not trying to push it on another neighborhood, but we've asked them like, well, have you considered like, what is the cost benefit for other neighborhoods, right? Instead of just focusing on Chinatown, what if it actually what if the numbers are better somewhere else? And the response we usually get is just like, that's not your business to know. You don't really understand what we're doing here. So we keep trying, we keep having these meetings, but there's kind of a lot of that kind of response. Yeah.
I don't know if you can answer this question, but I'm going to throw it out anyway.
Yeah.
So the Asian community in Philadelphia is really widespread. Like Chinatown seems to be, obviously like for Chinese immigrants, descendants. And then you have like Asian populations, like the Vietnamese and Korean, is it, in South Philly, right? Then you've got like folks like Taiwanese up in North Philly. Like, how do you bring do you think it's valuable? Like, is there a broader Asian community in Philadelphia? Or do you feel like folks are pretty kind of like in their own spaces?
Oh no, they definitely that's some of our first allies in this fight. So yeah, Washington Avenue and the Vietnamese plazas. There's also, if you go closer to Oregon, like Cambodian, Indonesian, Lao communities. Yeah. And I think like a lot of folks see themselves in this fight. I mean, one, like literally they might actually get their groceries in Chinatown, right? It's like, how do you make the food to cook up Lao food? It's probably from a grocery store in Chinatown. But yeah, there's a lot of connections that are just like we've been building for decades and decades, but also, that are from this fight. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if folks knew, but there's this plaza called Hua Bin on Washington Ave in 29. Oh yeah.
It's called what?
Hua Bin, HOABINH. Yeah, in 2019. So like I think there's 3 plazas in Washington Ave. It was one of the 3. And in 2019, basically it was sold. And it's like for some reason it kind of been in this weird limbo since then. But it at the time had a bunch of Vietnamese businesses. It was like a community center. And then, the community launched a campaign like Save Hua Bin Plaza. So it's like literally, I think for the Vietnamese community, they're like, wow, this just happened to us. That was like 5 years ago, and they sort of lost the fight. I think there's still some angle that they're able to kind of push because I think the sale is not final, something like that. But yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of connection. I think even if like folks are maybe like grouped by geography or language, like there's still a lot of ways that folks connect. Yeah.
Good. Glad to hear that.
Yeah. And then even like non-Asian communities, like, the Italian market, a lot of the Mexican restaurants that are up there, like they're like, oh, if they're going to come after Chinatown, like what happens to us? Like, who's to say any of this is like safe from development, right? Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, well, let me ask.
Everyone gets 2.
So you'll have to give us some food recommendations.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Yeah. Do you want to go first or should I do food recs? Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to be marching in the
Oh,
march on September 7th. So if there's
Yeah.
anybody here who wants to march alongside me, you can reach me, acobetta@yahoo. Be glad to connect with you. I'm connecting with a few friends from work. And so like, you don't have to march alone. Come and stand up against
I
the
love
arena.
it. Yes. No, that's perfect. Yeah. Never go to a march alone. You always got friends. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Is there a brochure that lists the restaurants and shops?
Yeah.
I mean, I came
yeah.
here tonight driving
Oh,
through
okay.
Chinatown,
Oh, yeah.
and I often do
Yeah.
to come to this part of the city. And yeah, sometimes you get stuck in traffic for a minute or two, but there are some restaurants that have been there for decades, and
Mm-hmm.
then others that keep changing.
Yeah.
But when I'm over at the visitor center at City Hall and I speak about people coming to Chinatown,
Mm-hmm.
I really think of it as Asia Town
Mm-hmm.
because I have gone there for Korean food
Yeah.
and for other kinds of food. So and the shops,
Yeah.
are representing different Asian people. So
Yeah.
I think it's your marketing,
Mhm.
what you have, that can help us to get people who
Yeah.
come to Philadelphia and want to go
Mm.
visit you.
Yeah.
Available to
Yeah.
them that
Okay.
don't
Yeah. So we don't have anything at AAU, but I think BCDC has a brochure. Like I've seen something. So I will ask them and I can try to send like a digital copy or something. But yeah, I've seen some kind of trifold that they have that folds out. Yeah. It's hard. There's so many businesses because we tried sometimes a catalog and then we're like, there's new ones. We run, our spreadsheet's out of date already. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Now, I'm on a double-decker bus and I come through there 4 times a day.
Oh, that's your
Is it
bus.
appropriate to say that it is a Asian Pacific community today, more
Um,
than just Chinatown?
I think so, except and this is my personal thing. Asian Pacific, like Pacific usually refers to like Pacific Islanders. I think in Philly, I wouldn't say we have enough of those to say it's Asian Pacific.
But how would you?
Yeah, but you can say Asian American for sure.
Asian American?
Yeah, yeah, because there's definitely a lot of like Southeast Asian folks who like live in Chinatown, but then maybe they go to school or work somewhere else.
So it's
But
an
it's still, like,
Asian
cheap.
American community.
Yeah.
Not Asian Pacific.
No,
Okay.
yeah, not the Pacific. Yeah, yeah. Indian? Oh yeah, not so much.
So when we speak of or think of the map of Asia, it
Yeah.
doesn't really. include
Oh yeah, it doesn't
It
include
is,
all 100
yeah.
languages. Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it isn't more specific.
Yeah. And then food recommendations. I always start with the people who are very involved in our fight. So it depends on what you're looking for, but QT sandwiches, like the letter Q and T. Yeah, Mike he's amazing. Also, if you mention AAU, maybe he'll give you a discount, but he's super, super down on. And someone from Boston came the other week and said it was better than their banh mi, which I was very surprised, but like I'll take it. Bubblefish is like, it's like sushi, it's poke, it's like happy hour. So I love to recommend that to friends because it's like a pretty good space in Chinatown. And then you can kind of get whatever cuisine if you have picky friends. I think there was a James Beard Award that was recently awarded to Vietnam restaurant in Chinatown. Yes. So they've been around since I think 1987. Yeah. And then I have my personal favorites. I mean, there's so many bubble teas, but one of them is like, they're like Michelin equivalent, I guess. So there's like a World Taste Institute award. So that is on, I think, Race Street in Chinatown. It's called like Chicha or Chicha. But I like to, just flaunt on my friends because I'm like, do you have a Michelin equivalent bubble tea store? But, it only opened up last year. So it's not like a long time business. But yeah, there's definitely, the really classic, either dim sum or classic like late night Chinese food, Thai Lake, Jade Harbor, Ocean City. I like all of them. Yeah. I'm always recommending to folks, like pick your day, just go to all of them, or go to one each weekend. Yeah. Top. Oh yeah, Bread Top. Yeah, the bakery. There I love like breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever you got. Like they have savory buns, they have regular buns. So Bread Top is just like one of our faves. Yeah. Oh, go ahead. I don't know. I mean, we would love. Oh yeah, the Trocadero. So the concert venue that was on Arch Street. Now it's just boarded up. I don't know. We were wondering too. I mean, we would love to use that space or have something be there. Just kind of empty. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Does anyone know? Oh, yeah, yeah. Go ahead. Mhm.
So about the Trocadero, I can't recall the article, but there was an article that they were trying to find somebody to purchase it to open it up again as a rock venue, but to add a restaurant. So they were trying for that. That was I think it was about 2 years ago. So I haven't heard an update. I did see an article kind of trying to bring attention to the old YMCA as well
Oh, yeah.
to try and get that landmark to be protected because there's some discussion of demolition.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Chinatown needs our support.
Yeah.
Give a nice round.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Thanks for having me. Thank you. And great job on the hybrid. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's on YouTube. I got it.
Can you just mention? Wait, just one more thing from Vivian here. We just had a last minute question from Nina. Where the tours are and how to get to them.
Oh, yes. Okay. So the tours are monthly. Unfortunately, they're not like always the same day each month. But if you keep up on our Instagram or our website, basically they're usually either a Saturday or a weekday evening. Sorry, we just choose based on our schedule. But yeah, they always start at FAX, which is the folk arts school that I mentioned. So it's at 11th and Callow Hill, right across from that climbing gym that's right there. Yeah, and then it's about an hour, kind of like little loop kind of tour. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
So I'm just going to ask one more question too. How is the rail park? Is that affecting Chinatown or impacting Chinatown?
The rail park. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, they're yeah. Oh yeah.
All right, if everyone can just for 1 second, she's just going to answer one more question. So if you could just settle down for one more minute.
Yeah.
And then we have Judy. After Vivian's going to answer one more question. And then when she's done, Judy is going to talk about the NFTGA conference. So we're not over yet. So.
Okay. Yeah. It's the rail park. So they actually have been working to connect more with the Chinatown community. So that's really great. They have a project with the school that's launching September 7th. Unfortunately, the same day as our thing, which we've been talking about, and I felt bad, but yeah. So I think it's interesting because for the kids, it's the only place they can play. Like there's not a lot of green space in Chinatown. So that's really helpful. But I will say the expansion, folks are a little concerned because it's like, is that going to make rent go up? So I think we're definitely trying to stay in communication with the rail park and say, how do we develop this and like grow this green space, but also not like just say, okay, well now it's, rents are doubled and everything. Yeah. So that's sort of the concerns. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Feel like it's been a while. All right. Oh, my name is Judy Smith, but I see a few new faces, so welcome. I just want to talk a little bit briefly about the conference that we're having at the end of January. For those new to the organization, APT, the Philadelphia Association, is one of many associations throughout the country. And being members of APT, we are automatically members of the NFTGA, which is the National Federation. And that's how we get our insurance through the National Federation. And then the National Federation is part of the World Federation of Tour Guides. So the National Federation has a conference every other year We had it here in Philadelphia in 2018, and it was in Charleston, and then it was in San Antonio, and then it's back here again for 2025. And then on the opposite years is when the World Federation has their conference. So just to give you a little bit of background. And it's a chance, it's usually a day and a half where we have different speakers and people really kind of just, you know, he can socialize and get to know each other. And it's all about showcasing the city too. So people come here not just for the conference, but primarily because, oh, they want to see Philadelphia. They want to do something different in Philadelphia, as well as being with our, you know, your fellow tour guides. So it's a great way to meet people and, you know, get your name out there and whatnot. So we have, I have had an unbelievable committee. We meet, we've been meeting on Saturday, not every Saturday. We're meeting next Saturday. And we have pretty much already planned the agenda for that day and a half. So the conference, people coming from out of town, we have booked the Independence Park Hotel right here on Chestnut Street and 3rd Street. We just bought the whole thing out. It's a boutique hotel. It's 41 rooms. About 2 weeks ago now or more, it was already a third sold out. So that's a good sign. Yeah. And we will, that first day, Wednesday, January 29th will be the first day when people arrive into the city. And we will offer, we being APT tour guides, and I will certainly work with Mary Ann once we get kind of that clarified what's happening on that Wednesday afternoon. But we'll offer different tours around the city. Okay. It kicks off then with Carpenter's Hall, and then our dinner on the Moshalo, which should be a really nice event. Hopefully we'll have a speaker. I know you say it differently, but I've always said Mushaloo. I've always said, okay, Mushaloo. Yep. So, and we hope we'll be able to have hopefully a speaker as well. I hope to get like Visit Philly or somebody to kind of kick us off. And then the conference begins on Thursday. We are going to be in the mayor's reception room at City Hall. Woo! So it's a heck of it's an unbelievable venue. And we have reached out to two of our other associations, one in Boston and one in Chicago. So we're going to have speakers. Hopefully that'll all work out from them. And we also have the president of the World Federation of Tourist Guides is coming from Vienna, Austria. So he's going to talk about the World Conference, which is going to be in Japan in 2026. And then he has a presentation too about AI and how to plan a tour using AI, which is fascinating. He gave that to us in Sicily. So our theme is basically revolutionize your business. So we're going to have a couple speakers addressing marketing ideas. Hopefully we'll have a speaker about touring with people with disabilities and how to treat that or how to deal with that. We have Mitch from the Trip School. I know we've had him a number of times. He's going to do a presentation about the tour guide makeover. So something new that we haven't heard before. Our dinner Thursday night is at La Familia, which is right around the corner. And we have lunch being catered by, I can't believe my came in here. So he's gonna provide the luncheon on Thursday during at City Hall, yeah, as well as a beverage service both days, right, Mike? Yeah, go on, twist his arm. Okay, and then we hope to also have a voucher for Reading Terminal Market. So basically 2 really nice dinners, 2 lunches. We have a wine and cheese reception that's included at the hotel on the second night. So a lot of nice things. And then people coming from a distance usually do like to stay over another night. So we offer an optional tour on Friday, or I'm sorry, on Saturday. And after a lot of discussion, we settled on Valley Forge. So we'll be going out to Valley Forge and by trolley or bus or something, and have a nice lunch out there in Chester County as well. So so that's all part of that, and that's kind of separate. So I would encourage, if you guys have never, some of you have never been to Valley Forge or whatever, it's really well worth doing it. So I was just talking to the webmaster this afternoon, and things are almost ready to launch. So the registration should be out there soon. And the minute I get that, I'll share that with Mary Ann so she can share that. It's all going to be, you register on the NFTGA website. So there will be pricing for both the full conference, or what we call if you have a partner or spouse coming. So in this case, like for us, if you don't want to do the conference, but you want to do the fun stuff, you can, there'll be a price for that as well. Okay. So questions? Yay.
Mike, did you want to just say a word? Or Mia? Say why you're here. He's here for a particular reason.
I did. Hi, everyone. Sorry, can you hear me in the back?
This is Mike Campo from Campo's Cheesesteak Place.
Hi.
And his sister Mia is back there also.
So I brought a whole bunch of discount cards. I left them on this counter. If you want, you could grab them, give them out to your customers and your clients. We'll take good care of them. And if you like, put your initials or your name just so we could see who's sending people. And thank you. That's yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Before everyone leaves, so we just have a few announcements. Well, actually, kind of a lot of announcements, but all guides certified by 25. I know you guys have been getting emails from us and seen in the newsletter. We really want to have, we have about half of our members now are certified, and we'd like to really raise that percentage. We have 2025, 2026 coming, lots of big events. We want to really be able to say like 80, 90% of our members are certified. So please do that. We have the promotion going on for online handbook and the certification exam at a discount for $50. That expires August 31st. So if you want to do that now or soon. Homecoming 250. Do you want to say it, Mike? Or you want me to just give the overview? So 2025 is the 250th anniversary of the founding of the Army, Navy, and Marine Corps. And especially Navy and Marine Corps, they're having the bulk of their big celebrations here in Philadelphia. So Mike Tatey, our vice president, he's partnering with this Homecoming 250 organization so that our tour guides can arrange tours for all the Navy and Marine guests who will be coming here. And then we're going to do like collaborating with them to advertise them. So they have on their Homecoming 250 page, they'll have a list about all the tours people can take that come, and it'll be linked to our page. And if you guys develop a tour about the Navy or Marine for throughout history, it could be colonial times, could be revolutionary, could be later, modern, everything, could be a bus tour, could be a walking tour, pick your area. But we'll have a nice page that will advertise that on so that the people can find us really easily. So this year, I think October 13th is the kind of anniversary where they're going to have their gala. They're doing one this year, this fall as well, sort of as a pre-event before 2025. So the sooner you get your tour developed and you can send your info to Mike, the sooner we can have it on a page. And these people that come in October for the gala might want some of these tours. But if you want to wait until, closer to 2026, that's fine too. But we want to get something on the page as soon as we can. And then Antoinette has agreed to head up, we're calling it a committee, but it's more like a research study group. Yeah, if people want to get together and just kind of brainstorm together and, divvy up research and share it with each other, just to make it a little easier to develop this new tour. Karen. Theme. Yes. Red. Right. Exactly. Right. Because we already have the regular tours, but this is for specific Navy and Marine type history tours. Yeah. And Philadelphia or New Jersey oriented. Yeah. Or even in the regions. So George Leone, who was our speaker in May, the recording is up on the APT YouTube channel. He did a great overview of literally every single thing you could possibly talk about with the Navy and Marines throughout history in Philly, in the greater Philadelphia area, in New Jersey. So definitely look at that video as a starting point. He has a lot of really great info in it. So start planning that now if you're interested. T-shirt submissions, a bunch of you submitted T-shirt designs for our semi-quincentennial 2026 Philly is the place to be T-shirt. So the board's gonna start looking at that. We got a bunch of taglines, so we're going through those first to pick a few, and maybe Carla will make a shirt or two for us with our winning tagline, and then we'll vote on all the submissions we got. So we're making progress on that. Fall training dates, save the date, November 15, 16, and 17. And we're focusing on step-on bus tour training. So that's going to be the bulk of it. And then depending on how long that takes, we may have some other things in there too. So middle November, save that. The events coming up next Tuesday, August 20th, is the coffee break that, where's Jim? Oh, he's back behind me here, that Jim organizes at the Visitor Center. So that's August 20th. The 27th on Zoom, we're having a workshop on how to use the Encyclopedia of Greater Philadelphia. We have some bookmark things here that Charlene brought. So if you want a little more info about the encyclopedia, great resource, could help you with your Navy Marine Corps tours. So you might want to check out the workshop, August 27th. It's only $5. Our meeting next month will be Charlotte Cohen from the Association for Public Art. We have a trip to Bartram's Garden, September 16th, and all these are on the website, so I'm not going to give you a lot of detail, but just a heads up. September 17th, CPR training, the certification for CPR to be a 2-year certification. Really great to have if you're a tour guide. You never know what will happen on tour, and it's only $30. So the regular price is $60 and he's only charging us $30. So it's a really good deal. We'll probably do it here. I'm just waiting for confirmation from HIP, but we're trying to do it here. The book club, September 18th, we're reading American Aristocracy. We need to change the date. So that'll be in the newsletter when we change the date. And very important, we need volunteers to help the Philadelphia Visitor Center Corporation on September 5th. So they have this big group of like 100 people that has to walk to the Museum of the American Revolution. And they want people to walk along with them, tour guides, and kind of talk about things as they're walking for that half hour. It won't take a half hour, but 15 minutes or whatever. And then when they walk back to the visitor center, so we can have up to 6 people, 8 people. So we have 2 so far. So sign up. Probably. I mean, they're probably up to 100 people. They're probably not going to notice if you join in. I don't know. She didn't say that, but it's probably fine. I can double check that with Suda. But it's volunteer, so there's no payment for it, but it's pretty easy. It's not a big time commitment, and it's really great to help them out and show that we are the place you want to go when you need a tour guide for something, right? So we want to help them out. And that was all that I had. It's 9:30 to 10, and then 11:15 to 11:45. And Lafayette is September 28th, that last weekend in September. And yeah, you want to say a few words about it? I didn't know if it was just for the Friends of Lafayette or is it for anybody?
Yeah, it's
It's kind of confusing.
Yeah, so the return of Lafayette, the 200th celebration, it's a big deal all over the country. The Philadelphia celebration will be the 27th, 28th, and 29th. So there's a lot of free events that are going to be happening on Independence Mall. And I sent Marianne the link. You can maybe put that in the, the next okay. Well, whatever. Okay. Well, it's the Friends of Lafayette. And I know Mike has been working with them too. We are going to have some limited tours from that Andy and I are doing for just about Lafayette and his footsteps and what's left here to talk about with when he was here. So but anyway, that's going to be something you have to register for and pay for. Okay. But there are some other free events going on. But that, just so you know, that weekend will be a lot of Lafayette stuff going on that last weekend in September.